Good morning and welcome to Friday's morning prayer reading and reflection. It's been a different week and a good one. We had John earlier in the week and then again yesterday. You were privileged to have me on Tuesday, but on Wednesday Tricia led us for the first time in a live morning prayer from her home at 9:15 and a very considerable number of us were able to join her there. I think there were 16 of us, which is about average for morning prayer when we meet in church generally, and that was really lovely, and we were able to join in. It was just lovely to see one another's faces. If that was something which you would have liked to do but were not aware of it, then please know that every Wednesday for the foreseeable future at 9:15 Tricia will be leading that service of morning prayer. It lasts, I suppose, about 20-25 minutes. If you knew that it was on and would have liked to be able to participate in it, but the technology defeated you, then please get in touch with us and we will see whether there's anything we can do to help you along. I've been told today that it's even possible, if you don't have a computer or a tablet or a smartphone, it is possible actually to use your telephone to dial into the Zoom broadcast, and you can take part simply by listening and talking. You don't actually have to be able to see what's on the screen. No, of course, in some ways that's preferable. So don't feel that you're shut out. If you really want to get involved and be able to take part, then just give one of us a call and we'll do what we can to make it possible for you. Shall we get back to today? And I'm going to read one of the passages which is chosen in the lectionary for today's service. It's from Paul's letter to the Colossians, chapter 3. And it's a reading which falls into two distinct halves. The first half, I think, will get the seal of approval from all of us, because it's Paul literally telling us how to treat one another. And it really is a rule for life in a Christian community, and indeed in any community. He gets more specific in the second part of the reading when he talks about rules for Christian households, and there may be one or two elements of this which will make your hackles rise. Let's remember that he said what he said, or wrote what he wrote, with the best possible intentions. He had as his aim to make sure that Christian family life was harmonious. Anyway, I'll talk about that a little bit later. Let me read the passage first. If you want to follow it, it's Colossians chapter 3 verse 12 to chapter 4 verse 1. As God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness and patience. Bear with one another, and if anyone has a complaint against another, forgive each other. Just as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. Above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in the one body. And be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly. Teach and admonish one another in all wisdom, and with gratitude in your hearts sing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs to God. And whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. Wives, be subject to your husbands, as is fitting in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and never treat them harshly. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this is your acceptable duty in the Lord. Fathers, do not provoke your children, or they may lose heart. Slaves, obey your earthly masters in everything, not only while being watched and in order to please them, but wholeheartedly, fearing the Lord. Whatever your task, put yourselves into it, as done for the Lord and not for your masters, since you know that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You serve the Lord Christ. For the wrongdoer will be paid back for whatever wrong has been done, and there is no partiality. Masters, treat your slaves justly and fairly, for you know that you also have a master in heaven. I can just see Jane's face now as she listens to the second part of this morning's reading, and she won't be alone. There are not many sections of our modern British community these days who would find Paul's advice on how to be a happy family totally acceptable. Deirdre and I watch more television at the moment, and thanks to being given DVDs of the first 2 series of The Crown and not being able to wait another year before the 3rd series was released on DVD, we gave in and subscribed to Netflix a few months ago. And I have to say, it was absolutely the right time to do it. As the BBC, ITV and Channel 4 begin to run out of the new material because actors can't act and social distance at the same time, Netflix's catalogue of films and television dramas is an additional source of pleasure. Well, a new series came on stream last week about the family life of a community of Hasidic Jews in Williamsburg, New York State, and it was an eye-opener to us. Here in the 21st century was a group of people who spoke mainly Yiddish and where women were regarded as precious only insofar as they married the man chosen for them and began to produce children as soon as possible. Women in this extreme sect of Judaism are forbidden secondary education, and while being expected to be strictly observant in their religious practice, they are not permitted to read books which go into the detail of their faith, in particular the Talmud, which, as Wikipedia explains, is the central text of Rabbinic Judaism and the primary source of Jewish religious law and Jewish theology. Until the advent of modernity, in nearly all Jewish communities, the Talmud was the centerpiece of Jewish cultural life and was foundational to all Jewish thought and aspirations, serving also as the guide for the daily life of Jews. Modernity has not yet reached the Hasidic Jews of Williamsburg. Despite regarding Paul as a traitor to their race, they would probably nod approvingly at his rules for Christian households. Wives, be subject to your husbands, as is fitting in the Lord. That's the part which understandably grates on the ears of today's women, as well it might. Some Christian denominations would also tend to agree with it. It might be mitigated by the next sentence, husbands, love your wives and never treat them harshly, but it doesn't alter the fact that the man is taken to be the head of the household and to have the final word, even if uttered in reasonable tones. It would be tempting, wouldn't it, simply leave out that part of Paul's letter, and for that matter, anything in any part of our Bible which goes against our modern way of doing things. I'm certainly tempted at times. But I think it's important to know our history as members of Christ's family. It's good to learn that the Jews, while regarding women as of lower status than men, nonetheless insisted 2,000 years ago that they be not only well treated, but loved. We've not seen such guidance in other national cultures, and indeed, being in the middle of Hilary Mantel's 3rd book about the reign of Henry VIII and the waxing and waning power of Thomas Cromwell, I'm aghast to read of the use and abuse to which English women of all ranks were subject. For the Jews in the time of Jesus, as now, family life was central to their existence, and Paul wanted that to be the case for the new Christians, most of whom, remember, were not of Jewish culture, and whose attitude to women, and indeed children, was not often as caring as was the Jewish one. The old Mosaic laws were not applicable to converts from paganism, insisted Paul, but some rules were indispensable for a Christian family life. Jesus' personal view of women showed his appreciation of them and his tendency to treat them as equals and often as exemplars of faith. Now, I won't list the examples now because you know them, but Mary and Martha, the sisters in Bethany, come immediately to mind. Especially there's Jesus' willingness to have Mary sit at his feet to learn from him. Today's Hasidic Jews in Williamsburg would be horrified at that. We can also see, as we listen to this part of Paul's letter to the people of Colossae in modern-day southern Turkey, how far we've come in honouring women, even if we still have a way to go. In Paul's own words from Galatians chapter 3, there is no longer Jew or Greek, there is no longer slave or free, there is no longer male and female, for all of you are one in Christ Jesus. That was a huge leap forward. As Christians, we too should, and I think mostly do, honour family life and honour one another. I think we progressed beyond deciding who's the head of the household. loving and valuing one another, we can model family life to the rest of the community. And as the lockdown continues and domestic violence is exacerbated by people being in close proximity almost every hour of the day or night, there has never been a greater need for us to demonstrate what family love can and ought to be. May God make us patient, tolerant and forgiving of each member of our family, and grateful for all they do and are. Thank you for being with me again this morning. John and I really enjoy doing these morning reflections, and it's so good to know that some of you are appreciating them, and we appreciate your comments and your encouragement. So thank you for that. And both of us will be back next week, John on Monday and Thursday, and I will be with you on Tuesday and Friday. On Wednesday, remember, for the second time, Trish will be leading morning prayer live on Zoom at 9:15 from her home, and you are invited to join us for that. It lasts about 20 or 25 minutes, as I think I said at the beginning. If you have any problems at all with the technology, do get in touch with us. I was delighted this morning that we were able to help John Field to get onto Zoom for the first time. I think he was delighted too, and we'll be looking forward to participating in our Zoom events in future. On Sunday, there is Zoom Sunday School and Young People's Groups, and you can get into those in the usual way by looking at your emails and seeing what the link is for those. There's no Sunday service from St Mark's. There is service, of course, from St Paul's, Letchworth with Jenny, and we are most warmly invited to join in that. And again, those links will be on an email which you have received. So we'll look forward to Sunday and to being with you again next week. I hope you have a really good weekend. I hope that you're managing to get something positive out of our lockdown. Certainly I'm very grateful for this lovely weather. It's lovely to be able to get out and appreciate the garden, and for a short time the countryside as well. Bye then, see you next week, and God bless you all. Bye bye.